honored to be here today in partnership with Bridge Meadows and Generations United at the 2019 Global Intergenerational Conference. We're here at the Hilton Hotel in downtown Portland, where thousands of people are joining us online, on the radio, and on TV. Online viewers will be able to watch a recording of today's forum via KGW's Facebook feed and City Club's website. Our radio audience is listening live via X-Ray FM stations 107.1 FM and 91.1 FM. And TV viewers will watch today's program via Open Signal's community media television stations. We are incredibly grateful for the support of our media partners in bringing City Club forums to our community. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about City Club. We were founded in 1916 by a group of young leaders who felt the city was not responding to the needs of everyday people. More than a century later, we are building on that legacy by bringing together a diverse community to spark change across our region. Through trusted research, open dialogue, and advocacy for our best ideas, City Club is working to make Oregon a place where everyone can thrive. To be effective in this work, we know that City Club must be inclusive, ensuring that everyone is welcomed, heard, and respected. We must be independent, coming to the table without a preconceived agenda or partisan bias, and we must be committed to courageous and intentional action to create change where change is needed. Thank you to our community for supporting our work to build understanding across communities and generations. Today, we'll hear from a panel of national and international experts on building strong intergenerational communities. We're lucky to have them here in Portland for the 2019 Global Intergenerational Conference, ready to share their insights on how Oregonians can enhance our communities through the power of cross-generation relationships. To kick us off, please join me in welcoming Donna Butts, Executive Director of Generations United.
Well, good afternoon and thank you. It's such an honor for us at Generations United, and I know for Bridge Meadows as well, to be a part of this City Club event. So welcome, and thank you for this opportunity. For me, it's really personal, though. I think some of you know that I grew up here in Oregon, and I consider myself an Oregonian, and I say that with a lot of honor in that I never knew the sun came out until I was 21. It came out in the winter. But my dad worked for the State Highway Department for most of his career. And when we would grow up, what he did was he drew a lot of the bridges that are here in Portland. And whenever as I was growing up, whenever we would come up here, he would inevitably get lost on these bridges. And of course, all of us kids in the back would go, "Dad, you drew this. Why can't you drive it?" And he would say, "Shut up. There's a difference between drawing them and driving them." And I think that's so true when we think about really high-quality intergenerational work, too. It's that difference between thinking about it and actually doing it well and actually living it. So today, our theme has been Bridging the Generations. And it really has drawn on over 60 years of a concept about how we intentionally connect generations, how we bring generations together, so they serve as resources to each other. And we've noticed that that's becoming a much more popular vehicle for addressing really critical societal needs. But in part, it's also because it really strengthens the cross-cutting relationships between ages. It helps to dispel ageism. And I don't just mean old ageism, but young ageism as well. Ageism goes both ways. And it really helps to foster understanding and reduce social isolation, which is so critical for our youngest and oldest people. What we've seen over the years is this change from small boutique intergenerational programs to building intentional intergenerational community, which our colleagues at Bridge Meadows do so well, to communities and cities taking on becoming intergenerational communities. And countries, including our colleagues in Wales and Scotland, have really made tremendous progress in making their countries intergenerational. Now, Portland has done a terrific job. You have got such a richness here in programs, in people, in visionary leadership, in organizations that work together. But the challenge really is to take that even further and make sure that you're knitting those together, that you're weaving that fabric so that the city truly values and engages people of all ages. I would challenge you that it's not enough to be age-friendly, And one of the reasons that I say that is so oftentimes when I ask somebody, not here in Portland, but other places, I'll say, oh, you're age-friendly. What does that mean? And what they'll tell me is that means that their sidewalks have curb cuts. So that way a wheelchair can get on it and a stroller can get on it. And I say, well, that's great. But what is going to help who's in that stroller and who's in that wheelchair connect? And that's where we're really talking about intergenerational, not just multi-generational, but intergenerational connections. So it's really that intentionally valuing and connecting and engaging generations. Now, I just want to share one last little story with you. My first intergenerational program that I ran was over 40 years ago at the Salem, Oregon YWCA. I was their teen director for about 10 years, and I was 20 years old, and I inherited this intergenerational program where we took high school sociology students to visit isolated older adults who were still in their own homes. It was a great program, but when I took it over, I had no idea. I didn't know anything about working with older people. I loved teenagers, and I found out a lot about working with older people and with those teenagers, because what I found were older adults who didn't get out of bed in the morning except when their student was coming, and young people that skipped school except for the day they were going to go see their older friend. They both had purpose. They had a reason to get out of bed, and that's when I really saw the power and the importance of connecting generations. And on the front of the Statesman Journal, if anybody knows that paper, my old hometown paper, we managed to get a story about the program one day, and they took a picture of one of the pairs of an older person, a younger person, and I still have it framed in my office to this day. So it's an older woman with white hair, and she's reaching across the table to pat the hand of the young man who's been visiting her for the last several months. And he just happens to have on a black leather jacket and an orange mohawk haircut. And the caption is, "He may look a little strange, but he's such a nice boy." So we really think about the importance of connecting and valuing all ages. You're doing an absolutely fabulous job here in Portland, and we are so honored and privileged to be with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Marshall, and I work locally here in television at KGW News. And I'm very honored to be here today. I thank Generations United, Bridge Meadows, and City Club for allowing me this opportunity to moderate a forum of very distinguished folks who have worked on this issue of intergenerational living around the world, really. And in 30 years of covering news, in preparing for today, I started to think about how often the subject comes up, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. These days, we report often that there are now more people over the age of 60 than under the age of 18, and the fact that that is just going to keep increasing over the years. We report on the nursing home boom, 1.5 million people now in nursing homes, many who might not want to be there. We talk about elders who benefit from interactions, from feeling useful. We talk about lower blood pressure. We talk about blood sugar being regulated just by feeling that you're a person of value. And we talk about the benefits that young people can get from interacting with elders. They learn skills, knitting, quilting, coin collecting, all the things that could be lost through the generations that are living on through these interactions that you are here to help promote and build around the world. And I started thinking about the fact that I'm really a product of intergenerational living, though I never called it that. When I was growing up, family of 7 children, my grandmother lived with us, Nana, for several years. And she was there to offer support, comfort, someone to be there when we came home from school. But she also served meals. She did the laundry. And probably key most was that she would say when I did something wrong to my mother, "Oh, Rosemary, you did much worse at her age." Big help around the house from Nana. I also used to spend summers on the coast of Massachusetts with my Aunt Florence and Aunt Helen, affectionately known as Ha and Pa. Not sure how they got those nicknames, but one of us couldn't say. But Ha and Pa never had children of their own. But we would go, my brother and I, send off. My mom could get rid of 2 of the 7 for the summer. And we'd go to the coast. They taught us to bowl. They taught us to mini golf. They taught us to go to dinner by noon so that you got the good discounts. I mean, it was endless what I reaped from them. In fact, I think my career path was based largely on the fact that Pa listened to police and fire scanners 24/7. And she would get me up in the middle of the night to chase the news. And I really think it ignited in me a desire to be part of things and to know what was going on first. She also gave me a great love of sports. We'd go to the Boston Red Sox games, sit in the outfield, but we would get there 3 hours ahead of time so she could try to get Carl Yastrzemski's autograph. It was amazing what, looking back, said to me about the way I was brought up and how important that interaction with elders was to me and to all my siblings. Now, Nana, Ha, and Pa all lived well into their 90s. And I think in large part because they had the support of the nieces, the nephews, and all those grandchildren. So again, a topic very near and dear to my heart. And I think today in the news we tend to label groups of people. We talk about the baby boomers, the millennials, the Gen X, Y, and Zs, and then the traditionalists who came before all that. And I would propose that, like they do in Hollywood, we look at blending. You know, we had Brangelina, we had Bennifer, we have Kimye now. Why can't there be a Tragen Boomlennial? Tragen Boomlennial. I mean, we could start it on the news and start referring to those who benefit from all generations and all walks of life and just move forward. And there are folks in this room that are going to serve on this panel today that will give us an idea of how to achieve that. And I'd like you to welcome them as I introduce them, give you a little bit of their background. Mark Friedman, welcome him to the stage. Mark is the originator of the Encore career idea linking second acts to the greater good. He co-founded Experience Corps to mobilize people over 50 to improve the school performance and prospects of low-income elementary school students in 22 U.S. cities. Dr. Bill Thomas, an author, entrepreneur, musician, teacher, farmer, and physician. His wide-ranging work explores the terrain of human aging, best known for his healthcare system innovations. He's the founder of a global nonprofit called the Eden Alternative, which works to improve the care provided to the elders. And Vicki Titterington, all the way from Northern Ireland, she has worked in the community sector in Northern Ireland since 2006, been a key figure in the development of intergenerational work since 2008. She and her team at Linking Generations collaborate locally and internationally with partners to advocate for and develop innovative approaches to bringing the generations together. Please welcome all our panelists. And as I sit down, I want to recognize that Senator Margaret Carter was supposed to join us today for the forum and sends her apologies. She is a little bit under the weather. You know, there's this terrible cold been going around Oregon, and I think it got the best of her. So we will miss having her remarks here today, but we appreciate the fact that she wanted to be here. So let's start off with Donna brought up this term of age-friendly, and Portland has been recognized as an age-friendly city. But as Donna mentioned, it's one thing to say it, Mark, but how do you put that into practice, and how have you seen it put into practice?
Well, unfortunately, it requires overcoming a grievous wound that we've inflicted on ourselves over the last 100 years or so. We began the 20th century in this country as the most age-integrated society in the world and ended it as the most age-segregated. People have talked about age apartheid, and we did it for most part non-nefarious reasons. In the early part of the century, we created child labor laws and universal schooling, but that meant that young people were shunted into a set of kid-only institutions. Even Social Security, which Ron Wyden talked about this morning, to my mind, the greatest triumph of social policy of the last century, but it had an explicit goal of getting older people out of the workforce at a time we had high youth unemployment. And so we ended with this reshuffling of the societal deck so that older people are in nursing homes and senior centers and retirement communities, middle people are in workplaces, young people are in schools. And even though individually those decisions made sense, collectively they've left us ill-prepared for the more old than young society. You mentioned that 2019 is the first year ever we've had more people over 60 than under 18. And so now we need a deliberate effort, not just to be friendly, but to integrate people across age in ways that create genuine connection, not just the aroma of friendliness.
Yeah. Mark, you mentioned that segregating just with schools and by putting kids of the same age together. And Vicki, I know in Northern Ireland you've done extensive work in the schools, and how have you been successful in doing that?
Well, I suppose just to pick up on the point of the age-friendly agenda has been very useful for us in Northern Ireland, but it has been a barrier in a way as well, because we have been working very hard to change the mindset that age-friendly is not about older people. Age-friendly is about everybody, because we're all aging, and it's preparing for a healthy age. So it's very much the message about age-friendly in Northern Ireland has been, this is an older people's initiative. And the danger of that is that by seeing it as an older people's initiative, which does not include working with other age groups and an intergenerational approach, is that actually it does the opposite of what it's meant to do, which is it compartmentalizes older people away from the rest of the community, and it becomes un-age-friendly. So what we've been doing is a strategic approach for Linked Generations as an organisation is to look at the age-friendly agenda and to see how we can use our evidence. We have a strong evidence base that intergenerational work, particularly what could be in schools, it could be in care homes, it could be with youth groups, is good for everybody, and it has evidenced outcomes. So we've used that evidence, and we have gone to consultation meetings, and we have managed to look at embedding our work and our organisation actually as a delivery partner into local age-friendly plans. So my presentation here yesterday was about how we have an ambition in Northern Ireland to have intergenerational work mentioned in every age-friendly plan, usually under the theme of respect and social inclusion or under health and community. So by doing that, we offer a space for others to use an intergenerational approach, and particularly schools are mentioned in those plans. So things that we've done dementia friend training as a way of raising age awareness. We're very much a connecting organisation, so our role is to, we approach an age-specific setting and we bring them together and we highlight the outcomes for all of them. We've done digital projects, bringing young people together with older people to teach them digital work, but we've also brought older people together with younger people to support them. So it's a range of things. We've had baby yoga classes where babies and their mums have gone in to sheltered accommodations, and they've had their baby yoga sessions, so the older people mix with the mums. And this isn't rocket science, this is matching up pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. So if anything, my message for today would be what we should be looking at is intergenerational solutions to social problems, not intergenerational work as an activity.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Thomas, your thoughts about age-friendly and what it means to you?
Well, I think, the word friendly implies friendship, and friendship is all about relationship. So while it's true that changes we make in the physical environment or our public policy, those are important things, not to be neglected. But age friendliness is friendliness of people of different ages. Well said, I think. And our work then is primarily about building relationships across what we arbitrarily define as generational lines. And it's interesting because those relationships are actually the source of purpose for people of all ages, and they're the foundation of community. So in a very typical technocratic fashion, we're trying to back into a very organic process of creating and sustaining community.
I really like specifics when we talk about such a huge subject. So I guess I would ask each of our panelists now to give me an example of something they've seen that really works in moving toward succeeding with intergenerational living. Mark, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first I just want to endorse what my estimable colleague and friend Bill Thomas just said, it is all about relationships. I'd even say it's all about love. And how do you create love? Well, I think one way is to realize that everything we know about human development in older and younger people points to the deep desire for these kinds of bonds. So Yuri Bronfenbrenner was one of the great child psychologists of the last century, said what every child needs is at least one adult who's irrationally crazy about them. And similar research on older people, the Harvard study of adult development shows that older people who form relationships with younger people are 3 times as likely to be happy. So they fit together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Vicki used that jigsaw term. So how do you do it? And I think it's not really that complicated. It starts with proximity. You know, if you create a society where generations don't have contact in daily life, you're not going to have a lot of relationship. I went to a senior living facility in Cleveland, Judson Manor, which was radically age segregated, but decided to provide free housing to graduate students in music because they wanted to get free concerts. So that, you know, free housing, free concerts, sounds great. You know, you fast forward 2 years, I went to visit, there's this, met a 94-year-old woman whose neighbor had been a young violist who got engaged to another young violist living next door to her. When they planned the wedding, they asked her to be the maid of honor. And that's
success.
And it grows out of, you know, just letting human development flourish.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Thomas, does anything come to mind?
Actually, I'll give advice that was given to me by an older friend that she called the friend funnel. So the way she described it to me is all through our lives, we have a friend funnel. And as soon as we start exploring outside of our family, we start putting friends into the friend funnel. And all through our lives, friends start dropping out of the bottom of the friend funnel. Like your best friend from 3rd grade moves away and you lose a friend out of the friend funnel. And she said that what she found the secret is you always have to keep filling the friend funnel. If you stop filling the friend funnel, then you will wind up alone. And I was really taken by this because if you just do the math, once you get into your 70s, 80s, and 90s, you're going to be filling the friend funnel with younger friends. And it's actually good for both parties. But I like the friend funnel concept because it creates an affirmative bias toward action for older people to continue expanding and exploring new relationships. And I think that's important.
And those relationships have to be with younger people. I remember Ha and Pa, my aunts I lived with in the summer, they would start every morning reading the obituary page.
Yes, right.
And we would say,
A
come on.
classic friend funnel situation.
Yeah.
So, you know, we convince them you have to expand your friend funnel. That's right. Now, Vicki, in reading about your organization, Linking Generations, you do some great programs. I saw you had All Ages April. There was Singing Generations, where you're constantly bringing the younger and older together. What sticks out in your mind as something that you've done that you feel has been very successful?
I suppose our role is to be a catalyst, to constantly be out there saying, this is a good idea for you to do. And we really are selling a concept. So we're a staff team of 5 people, and I'm the only person who works full time. And we couldn't possibly be a delivery organisation. So for us, we have to help people to help themselves. So it's going out there, it's holding people's hands, it's connecting people up. And I suppose to give a good example where we worked with a care home, we thought we'll build the connections around this care home. So I met the care home manager on a plane on the way home from London, and we talked about our jobs, and she said, I would love to do this. So we put in a funding application, and what we did was we worked to connect the care home to a primary school. So we connected the teacher and the care home manager and the activity coordinator, and they worked with the primary school children, and they did an arts and crafts project. We did dementia friend training with the pupils. We then went and we connected them with a youth group as well. We did the same kind of process. It was teenagers. They did a different kind of activity. I think they did tattoo workshop and something else. Yeah, and a fashion show. It was quite weird. And then we also linked them with the secondary school. So what you have is those young people have now changed. So they've moved on. But what you have is you have the connection sustained between the key staff in those organisations. And that care home has actually now branched out into linking with an early years centre as well. So it becomes part of what they do. And it's great when you go back there, you don't have any contact with them anymore other than to hear their good news stories. What you've done is you've planted a seed, and that seed's grown, and those people are able to continue that on themselves. So the story is that actually they're doing their own intergenerational work now, and they're coming up with their own ideas, and they're sharing those ideas with other people that we signpost them to. So that's the real success, is that people don't need your input anymore, because intergenerational is approach to what they do. And I think just to give an example is that, you know, the care home has a budget for social activity, and one of the most important things that they include in that budget is a bus to get the older people to the school, or to get, you know,
The transportation to make it happen.
So the little barriers are now overcome by them building that into what they do. And schools using, we've had a few examples where schools are using the likes of shared education program budgets or extended schools budgets. But those people, those organisations exist, those services exist, but the teachers and the care home staff don't have the time to do what we did, but they have the time to maintain it. So it's thinking about those kind of connections that we can do as intergenerational practitioners that will last. So that's my kind of, you know, that's a measurement of success.
You mentioned the tattoos. I think what I find so often is the older people in my life. My mother's 87, and it was a whole new world when she learned to use an iPad. You know, so making sure that they're able to keep up with what teenagers are talking about, what, you know, their kids in their 40s and 50s are talking about. And have you seen, Mark, any successful programs in that respect, just in an education sense for elders?
Well, I'm thinking about here in Portland, where our organization Encore, we have a program called the Encore Fellows Program. It's essentially the movie version, The Intern, but in nonprofits, where about 200 Portlanders have been playing the Robert De Niro role in nonprofits, spending a year in the organization using their skills from their midlife work, but to help advance the social sector. Although it was never part of the design, we were mostly focused on how they could help make these nonprofits more effective. It turns out that in almost every case, deep mentoring relationships develop with the staff in those organizations, and they were two-way. This conference began with a talk from Chip Conley, who's just written a book about the idea of a modern elder, part mentor and sage, part beginner mind and learner. And that's what's been really so profound in witnessing these relationships, is how much both parties are learning and growing. And I hope with the younger person in these modern elder relationships that they're learning how to be a modern elder, since they'll be at that other juncture sooner than they likely think.
There's always that question in any volunteer situation, who gets the most out of it? You know, the person volunteering or the one being helped, and usually it's mutually beneficial and beautiful, the result in the end. Now, Dr. Thomas, you have a program, Greenhouse Projects, now in 27 states. Can you explain that concept for us?
Well, my career, I began my career in medicine and became a geriatrician, started my work in long-term care, and was quite distressed by what I was seeing. And originally launched a nonprofit known to some people in this room as the Eden Alternative, and then followed it up with the Greenhouse model, both models designed to try to make the long-term care system function more effectively and serve people better. I have to say that I'm 59, I'm going to be 60 this fall, and as I reflect back on that part of my career, I mainly have a feeling of not achieving my goals and doing good things for some good people in some places, but I did not even put a dent in the system. And it took me a few decades to learn that age segregation, no matter how noble the motivation, age segregation is toxic to our society, and it inflames ageism. And the big part of the reason is you take society's most frail and vulnerable people, concentrate them all in one place, and then think yourself noble by offering them food and shelter and call that good, I'm not buying. So for the next part of my career, I'm really committed to, I hope, transcending my earlier work by really working to create models that do not segregate older people. And I see, thank you. So, and I'll say this very quickly because I'm interested in what these guys have to say. My model that I'm working with right now, which is I'm offering today, is a free and open, steal it, take it, use it, do anything you want with it. I call it MAGIC, and it means multi-ability, multi-generational, inclusive communities. And the idea is it's bad enough to segregate people by age, but we also segregate them by ability or disability. And that we're actually all a lot better off when we have access to communities, people from different backgrounds, different ages, and different abilities. So that concept, MAGIC, is really what's driving the next phase of my career.
And thank you. Just wanted to pause just a moment to recognize our radio audience out there. If the radio audience just happens to be joining us, or if you're listening online, this is City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. We're at the final event of the 2019 Global Intergenerational Conference. I'm with Mark Friedman, CEO and president of Encore.org, author, entrepreneur, and entertainer, Dr. Bill Thomas, and Vicki Titterington, the manager of Linking Generations Northern Ireland. And Vicki, we turn to you now because I wonder if you look at what we're doing in the United States and see it as being that different from what you're experiencing in Northern Ireland.
I think we all have the same issues. Older people, there's a lot more older people in both of our countries than there is young people. There's not enough resources to go around. And what we should be doing is celebrating that people are living longer, and we should be looking at them as a resource. But young people are a resource as well. I thought it was interesting you bringing up the digital thing. It's something that we've had lots of digital projects, but digital exclusion is still a big issue, for older people in Northern Ireland, and it's a real match for intergenerational work. And we created a digital toolkit, and we find it's one of the biggest things that older people ask us for support is, could you help me link with a school so that young people could support me with technology? So there's so many things out there that we could be doing, like little models like that would be replicated. And what I'm looking for when I come to this conference is, I take away, I think your shared sites are a real resource over here, and it's something we don't have back home. But how can we adapt those models? So there's lots of models out there which can be adapted and picked up and spread globally. But I think the issues are more or less the same. Apart from the difference in Northern Ireland at the minute is we're really struggling because we don't have a government. So I've had to actually look at where do I go to lobby. So I'm using local government, which doesn't have the same kind of pull, but you can see how we're still in existence as an organisation, and we've managed to get funding in a time when there isn't a government, using our issues locally to influence the likes of your local age-friendly plans, looking at the benefits for older people, looking at the educational outcomes for young people. So for me, intergenerational work is really a solution to the social issues that we all have in common. And in my workshop yesterday, I was with someone who was presenting from the UN, and her stuff really resonated with me. It's about how we take an intergenerational approach to these big, big issues. We shouldn't be segregating people. We should be bringing that power together. So I do think a lot of the issues are the same, and that we have a lot to learn, from the approaches that we all have in this room. There's so much resource in this room.
I like the fact that you bring up, the digital portion of it and how you are educating. And I read about a clever way you put it to use. They had singing generations, where they invited folks to sing a song with somebody in a different generation and post it on Facebook over the holidays. Did you get a good response to that?
Yeah, well, a big thing for us is how can we get the message out there with no money?
No money.
So we don't have lots of activity money. So I'll say a quick bit about Singing Generations. So For us, we know that at Christmas time it can be a lonely time for a lot of people, not just older people, but families as well, because some people don't have what they need at Christmas time. So we know that a lot of care homes would invite schools in to sing a Christmas carol. I remember doing it myself as a child, but not really as a positive experience. So what we want to do is we want those people to build better relationships. So we thought we'll have this Christmas competition, we'll put it out in social media, and we'll ask younger and older people to get together, rehearse, and sing a Christmas song. And the best video, which is through Facebook likes, wins a prize. And the prize is money out of our activity budget, but the prize has to be used for more intergenerational activity. So it's building and it's linking people together. So we did get a good response to it. Like for a small organisation like ourselves, our Facebook went completely mad and we couldn't manage. I was doing it on my phone at home at 11 o'clock at night. It was really, really stressful. So what we actually ended up doing was giving there was clear winners, but we give everybody a small amount of £50 to do a bit of intergenerational activity. But that just shows how a little idea that was generated in our office got out to so many people. There was 32,000 video views, and for a small, country like us, that was a big deal. And our Facebook went up by 400 likes in 10 days. It had been sitting static at 700 for about a year. So you can see how people just got engaged and it got shared far and wide. So the message is very important too.
Yeah, and with successes like that, so much to be learned, but you can also learn, Mark, from programs that haven't worked, maybe things that have been tried. Can you share any ideas on that subject?
Well, I think that I talked earlier about the virtues of proximity, but proximity is necessary but not sufficient. And I've seen a lot of programs where, I won't name names, but where the generations, are brought together, but in a way that's more ceremonial than substantive. And yet at the same time, there are so many powerful examples running the opposite direction. Because I think, maybe the essential point that we've been all making is that we need to set up a society that runs with the grain of human happiness and not against it, which we've done inadvertently. But how do we, I've been convinced that the real fountain of youth is the fountain with youth, through that. And I see so many powerful examples of even without a lot of help, the generations seeking each other out. I don't know if any of you saw, a couple weeks ago, there was a piece in, of all places, the style section of the New York Times about a group called Nuns and Nuns. And it's about a group of millennial nuns, N-O-N-E-S, who check none when it comes to religious affiliation, but are spiritually inclined, who want to create a better world. And what have they done? In dozens of cities around the country, they've sought out older NUNSs, nuns who've taken a vow of poverty, devoted themselves to fighting for justice, and they've created meetups around the country. And now they've created a residency in California, and they're thinking about going to the border to work on refugee issues together and bring the wisdom of age and the virtues of youth together. And how do we foment that kind of activity? Because people want it. It's an inchoate longing that's so deeply human.
I appreciate your thoughts about the, making it ceremonious, because I think there is a tendency to do that when really it's what we're finding is the simplicity almost serves all generations better, is taking the simple things that you face in life and finding someone from another generation to support you along that path. Dr. Thomas?
Actually, I could really pick up on both these ideas, and something that I've learned over the course of my career is that convenience kills community. And that we endeavor constantly to make our lives and the way we arrange our lives more convenient. And as we do so, we cut every strand of community. And that in fact, community very often is born out of inconvenience. And everyone in the room has stories about this, about natural disasters and people coming together. So I like to take the covert, or what's hidden, and make it overt. So in our planning and our thinking, in the work I do, I always try to say, hold on, is this too convenient? Because if it is, people don't get a chance to make the relationships that they need to rely on in order to accomplish some objective.
Absolutely. You know, we have City Club members here with us this afternoon. We want to recognize their efforts to really become leaders in the community. And, you know, they would have a chance to spread this message. So I would like just a brief thought from each of you on sort of an elevator speech or tweet, you know, their messaging and how they can seek to promote intergenerational living. Mark?
The only way we're going to make it as a more old than young society is through connecting in ways that are mutually beneficial. This isn't some abstract future hope, but it's an imperative to connect what's timeless with the timely need to do it now.
You got a hashtag for us, Dr. Thomas?
I would say hashtag grow up. Because there's actually two developmental journeys going on here, and as Mark points out, when they intersect, it's really beautiful. There's the struggle to emerge from childhood into adulthood, and then the far more difficult, tangled journey of emerging out of adulthood into elderhood. And it turns out that's really hard to do in an age-segregated group for both young people and old people.
And Vicki, I'll give you the final word on this.
Okay, well, I would just say the message is I think it's better to age together and not apart. And all of us can play a role in connecting with someone, whether it's that person that's in the shop or whether it's actually building a program. So just remember that we all have something to offer one another, and that we all, I think, you know, when I look at older people, I think we all have to remember that they were young once too. And they have a lot to give us as well as us. We're the connection to the future and the past together.
Fantastic. Well, we do want to invite your questions this afternoon for this panel because I'm sure their comments have brought a thought or two to your head. And we have microphones in the back of the room, 2 of them. We invite you to step back there. We ask you to keep your question, you know, to about 30 seconds. And if you would like to, you know, direct it at one member of the panel in particular, please feel free to go ahead and do that. And from our first question, we have Dorinda Schubert, the Executive Director, who you heard earlier from, of Bridge Meadows. Dorinda, your question, please.
Good afternoon. Hello, my esteemed panelist colleagues. My question is a little more, it's a building on the one you just asked, Kathy, and that has to do with, Mark, you said that approximately 100 years ago, policies were put in place to segregate the generations. Now we have some momentum. You can turn on the TV, and there's commercials about intergenerationalism. We're all talking about it. There's books written about it. So we've got this really great momentum that we don't want to lose. Could you offer some policy recommendations at the macro level and the micro level that our City Club audience could embrace and move forward? Because this is a group of folks who really have voice with those who make policy. Thank you.
Well, here's one thought. Bill talked about the 2 journeys that are intersecting of young people moving into adulthood and people entering this new stage of life between the middle years and old age, which doesn't yet have a name. And how do we bring them together in ways that support the development of both? And I think that we should start with really simple ideas. I'd like to see a national legacy corps that builds on the great work of programs like Foster Grandparents, Experience Corps, that brings older people together with preschoolers and does it in a way which essentially takes the grandparenting idea and moves it beyond families and into communities. I think the time has come for that, and it's a way where, to paraphrase one of the informal mottos of the foster grandparent program, we can find a way where every dollar is spent twice.
Excellent. We do want to tell our radio listeners that there is an opportunity to submit a question as well. You can go to Twitter and use the hashtag FridayForum. This is the City Club Forum on Intergenerational Living. We have on our panel here, we have Mark Friedman, we have Dr. Bill Thomas and Vicki Titterington. So please, we welcome your questions from the radio audience as well with hashtag Friday Forum on Twitter. I believe we have a question at the back of the room there.
Good afternoon. Carlos Romer, ARP, Oregon. My question is, has there been a study on the effect of culture in the intergenerational situation? Specifically, for example, the Hispanic Latino culture prefers to have the family at all ages living together and helping each other. But what role does culture play in this topic?
Dr. Thomas, would you like
I
to
would
take
say that when you take that question about family and culture and life and you filter it through academic science, you wind up with a concept called social capital. And that's the idea that wealth does not consist of money alone, and that part of our wealth is in our relationships. And in very close-knit cultures, a lot of those relationships are built around family. And there is good evidence that a strong family network helps people living with limited financial means get more out of life and enjoy life better. And there's also evidence that it doesn't have to be blood relatives, that having a close social network is good for health and cognition and outcomes. A lot of outcomes we measure, even if the people you're close to are not your kinfolk. So I think there's something to be learned from cultures that cultivate those close family relationships. And I think there's also an important point that it doesn't have to be blood relatives.
I want to just jump in and echo what Bill was saying, and to give a specific example, we're at our organization involved in a project in Santa Clara County, which is the San Jose area, in all 27 family resource centers, primarily in Latino neighborhoods. And we're inviting older Latino grandmothers who are dropping their kids off to come on a stipended basis and work in these family resource and essentially go beyond kin. And it draws on deep cultural traditions in that community of older people playing this role and builds on this resilience that's often overlooked in these neighborhoods to the benefit of all.
helping them feel valued?
Yes.
And to the back of the room here?
Yes, thank you. I'm Jack Levine. I'm a founder of Four Generations Institute, and I'm based in Florida, the home of close and questionable elections. My question is about civic engagement. We all know that 70-year-olds voted 70% and 30-year-olds voted 30%. And I give you that as an offering of some strategy to unite the generations through communication around the importance of at least voting, but obviously more broadly civic engagement. So I'd like your experts to help us guide that conversation around the importance of civic engagement across the generations.
I'd like to ask Vicki first. Do you see a similarity in your country?
Yeah, in my country it's really bad because nobody really sees what the point is because the government's really has really failed us. But we have at home, we have a pensioners parliament and we have a youth parliament, which is good for those individual age groups, but is quite a negative thing actually when you look at it together, because what happens is you have older people calling for what they want, but usually they have empathy towards younger generations anyway, but it's an older people funnel program, and you have young people doing the same thing, and you have these messages going to the government when it is sitting, and you have the government manifestos and the political parties then basing their on the voters who vote most, which is older people. So what you find is that actually that in itself creates intergenerational conflict. So back in 2012, and this is just an idea, back in 2012 what we decided to do was try and run an event which would create empathy between generations on these kind of decision-making statements. And we got strangers, older and younger people who didn't know each other in a room like this, round tables. The event was called Is It Fair? And we used voting systems, which was like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And we used questions from the Eurobarometer around jobs, around social security, all those kind of bigger issues that young people sometimes think they don't have anything to say about. So some of the questions were, should all older people retire tomorrow to make jobs for young people? And what we did was we got them all to vote, and then they talked about it for 5 minutes, and then they voted again. And actually, people changed their opinion. So I just thought, isn't that amazing that something so small could make such a big difference? So in answering your question, I think there is a real role in getting generations together to talk about solutions that are good for everybody, not just thinking about their own age group, but actually organizations sometimes push people to do that, and policy and politicians respond by going to the groups that vote more. So it needs to be the whole system approach. But that's what I would like to see, is that young people and older people get together to talk more about issues that affect everybody rather than issues that affect just them.
And that's global. That doesn't have to be different by country, absolutely. Let's go over here for one more question.
Win Wakala, City Club member. City Club is known for public policy and leadership, and we used to have more committees, but we're just down to 2 now where anybody can join them. And there's a lot of older people in City Club, and part of it I see is mentoring, being able to bring younger people in and mentor them. Do you have some ideas for different kinds of committees or things we can do where we would be working together and the older people could pass on their knowledge and skills to younger people?
So setting up, organizing these mentorship situations. Dr. Thomas, any thoughts?
I've been very blessed in my life to have a number of very wonderful mentors. And I've noticed the difference between people I hold dear as a mentor and other people who give me lots of advice is that the mentors focus on what I'm trying to do or what I think and helping me get there, and the not helpful people try to tell me what I should be doing. Yeah. And I think this, if I could say to the City Club, if you want younger people involved and engaged, there are a lot of passionate young people in this community, and the mentorship is around helping them do what they want and reserving your own judgment about whether, that's how you think that's the right goal or not. Help them learn how to turn that passion into progress, and you'll do well.
To echo, I feel like my role is to echo everything Bill is saying, and I'm happy to do it again. The great mentor in my life at one point told me that it took him a while, but he realized that the key was to stop trying to be so interesting and be interested.
Excellent. Final question from the back of the room there.
Ted Kay, City Club member. An example and a question. The example is, recently in Hungary, I learned about a program in a village where the local elementary's school food service served not only the kids at lunchtime, but the local seniors. So the grandmas and grandpas came down to the elementary school for lunch at the same time that the elementary school kids were eating lunch. Wonderful cross-generational interactions there. It kept both of them on their best behavior. The question I have is, in this segregation where we have built these very strong institutions and organizations that segregate the components of our society by age, what incentives can we create to provide them with the motivation to break those barriers and work together?
Any thoughts, Vicki?
I think everybody wants to, when we're trying to promote intergenerational work, people are saying, well, what's in it for me? What do I get out of it, or what does my organization get out of it? So it's actually showing, as a practitioner, going out with our approach, if I'm going out to a school, I'm saying this is good for your pupils because this helps you meet your every school a good school policy because it does this. And when you're going out to work with care homes, or because all these places have their own agendas, you have to fit the value with what they understand. So for me, it's turning it into a language that might not even at the end come out intergenerational, but it fits with that particular agenda. So for me, it's some of the schools that I've worked with, you start off and you're sitting in the office speaking to the principal, and he looks at you like you've got 3 heads. And he's like, what? You want to bring like 20 older people in here to do this? And I'm like, yeah, it's good, and it will meet this policy and meet that. But once they've got over that and they've done it a couple of times and they see the faces and they see the value, so it really is about fitting it in with what they want to achieve, I think.
Bill or Mark, any final thoughts?
You know, before I was talking about proximity, but I think proximity plus common interest is really the recipe, and probably there's nothing no more common interest around anything than food. So I love that particular example. I maybe even expanded to say donuts, but
I would just say then, and if I may, this is an opportunity for every person in this room to have a direct impact on the questioner's issue. All forms of segregation and bigotry rely upon tacit approval. They rely upon people just going along with it. And that's the one thing everybody in this room can do, is withdraw your tacit approval of ageist bigotry and age segregation. And if we're willing to do that, then the people on the other side of the table or on the other side of the phone conversation start to have uncomfortable conversations about, why are you doing this? This is not right. And my experience with a lot of these people in age-segregated settings is they're good people, but they're living with this illusion that they're doing the right thing. And we have to remove that illusion from them.
It is a very complex issue to try to deal with in a 45-minute panel, but I think we have some really solid ideas here from our panelists, and I thank them very much for joining us this afternoon. I leave you with one thought, and this comes from Pa again. When I was younger and wanting to earn money and run down to the candy store, she made me earn it and taught me a very good lesson. And I said, well, how am I going to earn it? And she says, you're going to help me stop swearing. Every time you hear me swear, I'll put a nickel in the swear box. So I sat down, did a little arts and craft project, created the swear box, and by the end of the week, I had enough money to go to the candy store. So, and I know the City Club radio listeners were afraid I was going to maybe go out with a bleep here at the end, but you're doing very good work. I'll leave it at that, and I ask you to continue. Just by being in this room, you're paying attention to this issue. So thank you so much.